It is day 2 of the Sean Diddy Combs federal trial. Combs' ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, she is one of Combs' many accusers, testifying as a central witness.
Is she ready?
Very ready and confident. Thank you.
Among other things, the singer is expected to address the 2016 video of Combs attacking her in a hotel when she was his girlfriend.
They once called him a music mogul, a kingmaker, the ultimate success story in hip-hop. But yesterday, as Cassie Ventura took the stand in court, that carefully built image began to crumble. Diddy's face reportedly turned pale as his ex-girlfriend recounted deeply disturbing incidents, so shocking that even the most seasoned courtroom reporters were left stunned. The man who once ruled an empire couldn't control his reactions as Cassie exposed everything, and we mean everything, about what allegedly took place behind closed doors.
When she walked in there, Rachel, she had on a brown dress, form-fitting, visibly pregnant, head held high, and did not make any eye contact with the defendant, with Sean Combs. She said that Sean Combs directed everything from what she had on, to the lighting in the room, to how she was supposed to interact with the person that she was having sex with. And again, just to reiterate what is a freak-off, the freak-off essentially was something that Cassie said she learned about through Sean Combs about a year into their relationship. He described it as voyeurism, wanting to watch her have sex with someone else. And she said that she did it because she was 22, 21, she was young, she didn't know any better, and that she wanted to please Sean Combs.
Among other things, the singer is expected to address the 2016 video of Combs attacking her in a hotel when she was his girlfriend. Combs has pleaded not guilty. His attorneys argue the video is evidence of jealousy, not sex trafficking. And now for the first time, jurors are hearing what Cassie has to say about that and other aspects of their 10-year relationship.
For decades, Sean Diddy Combs walked through the music industry like he owned it, because in many ways he did. He built bad boy records from the ground up, transformed unknown artists into superstars, and expanded his empire far beyond music into fashion, vodka, and media. On paper, Diddy was the ultimate success story, a man who showed the world how to turn hip-hop into a billion-dollar business. But that polished image, the carefully curated persona of a business genius, mentor, and music visionary, was, if you believe what's coming out in court now, hiding something far darker. While magazines put him on their covers, praising his business acumen, while fans cheered his performances and admired his charm on red carpets, Cassie Ventura was reportedly living an entirely different reality. Contrast shocked everyone in the courtroom yesterday. Here was a man known for being the ultimate professional, custom suits, flawless grooming, always saying the right things in interviews. But the allegations being laid out in court painted a picture of someone completely unrecognizable to the public, a man very different behind closed doors. Court reporters described how Diddy arrived for day 2 of the trial looking every bit the billionaire mogul, surrounded by a team of elite lawyers, nodding confidently, even flashing the occasional smile. He looked like he was walking into a boardroom, not a courtroom. But that confidence didn't last long. Within the first 30 minutes of Cassie's testimony, his demeanor changed entirely. The swagger was gone. The mask of control started to slip. Witnesses said his once calm expression began to crack as Cassie described disturbing incidents from their relationship. His legal team jumped up with objections, repeatedly and almost desperately, trying to stop her from speaking. But the words were out and the courtroom was riveted. Can you imagine? The man who built a billion-dollar empire, who controlled artists' careers and closed massive business deals, now unable to control his own reactions in front of a judge and jury. Observers noted that Diddy couldn't sit still. As Cassie spoke, he reportedly fidgeted with his tie, then his cufflinks, then just his hands. At one point, he started writing frantic notes to his lawyers, so many and so quickly that one of them had to raise a hand to get him to slow down. One court reporter said it felt like watching someone realize, maybe for the first time in their life, that they'd lost control of the narrative. Another observer described Diddy as looking physically ill as Cassie calmly recounted the details of their relationship. A third noted how he closed his eyes multiple times as if he couldn't bear to look at her or hear what she was saying. And this was just the beginning. As Cassie's testimony continued through the afternoon, the courtroom would soon learn why Diddy was unraveling. The specific allegation she was about to make would send shockwaves through the music industry and could potentially destroy the legacy Diddy spent decades building. The man who always controlled the story was now facing one he couldn't edit or erase.
At some point in time, she actually had said that she looked forward to the freak-offs. Why did Cassie express looking forward to these said freak-offs?
When the prosecution asked her, was there ever a time that you enjoyed the freak-offs? This is when Cassie got choked up and she said, I did, but only because I got to spend one-on-one time with Combs, and I really did love him.
And that is speaking to the psychological abuse, in addition to the physical abuse that she potentially experienced.
Yeah, she's definitely laying out someone who was young, who was influenced by wanting to have this record career. She signed a 10-album deal with Bad Boy Entertainment, led by Sean Combs, and basically describes being enamored by Sean Combs, loving him, not knowing about certain things sexually, and him sort of telling her, teaching her about that. And what you hear is someone that was young and she even said, you know, I was young, I was naive, I didn't know any better. But she's really telling the story of someone who thought she was going to be with someone in this music industry that was going to help her career, that cared about her, but quickly learned after the freak-offs that wasn't the case. And what I thought was also interesting is she said that after that first freak-off, she said she felt dirty. She didn't want to do it. And when she brought up the idea of having a conversation about the freak-offs in an email, which the jurors saw, she said she backpedaled in the email because Combs responded by saying, I know, you don't want to do it. And she said, oh no, well, it's not that. But that was the beginning. That was in 2010, where she brings up in an email that she wanted to have a conversation about this. And in her words, she didn't want to do it, but she felt like she had to do it.
Well, Diane, prosecutors have wasted no time getting right into the alleged abuse that Cassie Ventura says she endured for years. Ventura telling jurors, quote, he would bash my head, knock me over, drag me, kick me, stomp me in the head when I was down. She also got into the nature of those so-called freak-offs, saying that they involved hiring an escort and they performed under the direction of Combs, saying that they happened so frequently it eventually became a job for her to set them up. Ventura said she did not feel she had much of a choice but to participate, that she feared that Combs would retaliate or potentially blackmail her if she did not. And she's had at times to take, she's taken deep breaths, pausing her testimony, Combs appearing to be listening pretty passively with his hands in his lap at the defense table.
When Cassie Ventura took the stand, you could hear a pin drop in the courtroom. Everyone knew this moment was coming, but no one, not even Diddy's high-powered legal team, was truly prepared for what she was about to say. After years of silence, years of keeping her story locked away, Cassie finally had her moment to speak. And speak she did. She started small. That's what made it so chillingly effective. Cassie began by describing how she met Diddy at just 19 years old. He was already a music industry powerhouse, wealthy, influential, with connections in every corner of entertainment. She was a young model chasing a music dream. From the very beginning, the power imbalance was undeniable. And according to Cassie, Diddy knew exactly how to exploit it. Her testimony unfolded like a psychological thriller, slow, steady, and impossible to look away from. First came the control. She claimed he demanded to know her whereabouts at all times, showing up unannounced if she was out with friends. Then came the professional manipulation, how, according to her, he threatened to shelve her music if she didn't meet his demands, how he allegedly sabotaged collaborations if he felt jealous or insecure. But what stunned the courtroom was the claim that Diddy had installed tracking software on her phone. Cassie testified that he would sometimes call her within minutes of arriving somewhere, knowing exactly where she was. She said he slowly cut her off from friends one by one until he was the only person left in her life. Her support system, she claimed, vanished. During this portion of her testimony, the judge had to call for order 3 separate times. Diddy couldn't contain himself, shaking his head, whispering to his attorneys, reacting visibly in front of the jury. Each time, the judge warned him, and each time he'd sit still for 5 minutes, only to unravel again. It was like watching a man who had never heard no in his life come to terms with the fact that he couldn't control this room. Then came the turning point. Cassie pulled out her phone and handed it to her attorney. Suddenly, the courtroom lights dimmed and messages, text messages and emails were projected onto a screen for everyone to see. The look on Diddy's face? Pure shock. He clearly didn't expect her to have saved these. Messages where he allegedly apologized for violent outbursts. Messages where he appeared to threaten her career if she ever spoke out. Messages that directly contradicted public statements made by his PR team for years. And those were just the warm-up. Cassie then began detailing physical abuse, allegations that left the courtroom silent. She described being thrown against walls. She recounted an incident in a Miami rental where she says Diddy pushed her down a flight of stairs. And most harrowing of all, she testified about multiple times he allegedly choked her until she nearly lost consciousness, only stopping when her body went limp. The jury reacted. One older woman wiped tears. A male juror avoided looking at Diddy entirely during some of the more graphic moments. Even the most seasoned courtroom reporters admitted afterward they weren't prepared for the level of detail in Cassie's testimony. And all of this was only leading up to the hotel incident, the moment that, according to sources, could blow this entire case wide open.
Relationship with Diddy. Some of those details we've seen in prior lawsuits, but to hear her on the stand actually giving those details, reliving those moments herself. Also, you have to remember, she's very pregnant right now. So I'm going to be curious to see how long she makes it on the stand, how she's emotionally able to weather all of these questions. And what's going to be interesting to watch is, you know, the defense from the very start in their opening statement said that she chose to be there. So I'm going to be curious to see how she responds to questions about, was this her choice or did she feel like she had to do all of these things?
I think what made Cassie emotional is having to describe the details of the freak-off and why she did it. When she talked about wanting to do it to please Sean Combs, that's when she broke down. Up until that point, she had just been answering the questions. She's a little soft-spoken at times, but that's when she got emotional. When she had to answer the question about if she enjoyed it, that's when she broke down, because she said, I enjoyed being with Sean Combs. And she says, I did it because it made him happy.
What did the expressions of the jurors look like?
The jurors are laser focused on what Cassie has to say. And that's to be expected, right? Because she is the person who will likely be on the stand, according to attorneys, for 2, maybe 3 days. She's the one that was in the relationship with Sean Combs for over 10 years. So she's got a lot to say, and she's just getting started.
Just how important is Cassie's testimony to the prosecution?
I think it really connects the dots, Rachel. When you look at that initial indictment and what's being alleged, she really is the person that has probably the most information about this idea that the prosecution says, which is creating a criminal enterprise for Sean Combs' sexual desires. Something else that the jurors saw today that sort of connects it back to this alleged criminal enterprise are 7 photos of people that were very close to Sean Combs, one even his former chief of staff. And these were all people that Cassie Ventura was able to name and explain the functions in terms of what they did: security, driver, chief of staff, someone that handled financials. So it's showing that she knew some of these people, again, because she was with him, around him for so long.
I thought I was going to die that night, Cassie said, her voice barely above a whisper. Courtroom leaned in, silent and tense, hanging on every word. She was describing something no one, not the press, not the fans, not even the gossip blogs, had ever heard before. The Four Seasons hotel incident had remained buried for years. Cassie explained she kept it secret out of fear. Fear for her safety, fear for her career, and fear that no one would believe her over someone as powerful as Diddy. But now, sitting on the witness stand, she wasn't holding anything back. What started as a routine industry after-party, according to Cassie, spiraled into a nightmare. She testified that Diddy became enraged after seeing her talking to another music executive. His smile disappeared. He allegedly grabbed her arm so forcefully it left bruises, then leaned in close and whispered threats, while still maintaining a calm, public demeanor in front of the crowd. But what happened next shook the courtroom. Cassie claimed that Diddy dragged her through the hotel lobby to the elevators as she cried and tried to break free. The scene drew enough attention that a hotel security guard approached them. But once he recognized Diddy, he just asked if everything was okay, Cassie testified. And when Mr. Combs said yes, he walked away. He didn't even ask me if I was okay. Then came the photos. Cassie's lawyer presented a series of images she had taken of herself the morning after the incident. Bruises on her arms, a split lip, redness around her neck. They weren't polished or professional, just shaky selfies in a bathroom mirror. And that made them even more haunting. She explained she took the photos because she knew people might not believe her without proof. Diddy's legal team pounced, trying to block the images, arguing they weren't properly authenticated, that they could be from anything and should have been disclosed earlier. The judge denied every objection, and the photos were shown on the courtroom screens. The jury's reaction said it all. One woman covered her mouth in shock. Two male jurors turned their heads away. A juror in the back row was seen scribbling notes, her hand visibly shaking. This hotel incident was a bombshell no one saw coming. It wasn't mentioned in earlier filings. Diddy's team had no strategy prepared. Their panic was obvious, especially as Cassie described the rest of what happened that night. She testified that Diddy threw a champagne bottle at her head, missing by inches as it shattered against a wall. She said he destroyed the hotel room in a fit of rage, smashing a lamp, flipping a table, punching a hole in the bathroom door. But the most chilling claim? Cassie testified that he held her there for over 48 hours, taking her phone, blocking the exits, and threatening consequences if she tried to get help. As she finished that part of her testimony, all eyes in the courtroom turned toward Diddy. And in that moment, his reaction wasn't just telling, it could define the entire trial, and possibly the rest of his career.
I think what the defense is going to say is that this wasn't blackmail, this was not coercion, this was consensual. We know that Cassie started out with Sean Combs as an early person, with someone who is trying to get her career started, and he was going to help her. That's what the defense is going to say, that she was starting out and wanted someone to support her. They did their first record deal together. That's something I think the defense is going to focus on, and had it not been for Sean Combs, she wouldn't be where she is right now. The prosecution obviously is saying he was in control. It may have started out as a consensual, it may have started out with her being excited about seeing him, but ultimately he took control of that relationship. He took control of her career. This is their key witness, and she's on that stand trying to explain all of the charges that the prosecution wants to hit home with that jury.
No, there was a moment early on when Cassie mentioned Dallas Austin, who she called a friend who's a producer. So I don't know if that's someone that we're going to hear from. We know that there were pictures shown to prospective jurors that are well-known celebrities, you know, Kanye West, Kid Cudi, Lauren London. We don't know, though, how they fit yet into why they were even asked, do you know these people? Are you familiar with them?
So the prosecution is questioning Cassie right now, still questioning her.
The defense hasn't even got a chance to, I mean, that might change based on the timing, but you know, because she's such a key witness, it's likely that she will be on that stand the rest of the day. We learned that Cassie referred to him as Pop Pop, and Sean Combs would refer to her as CC. The prosecution says, what does CC stand for? She said Cassie Combs.
What kind of witness is Cassie coming off as to the jurors?
I think naturally when you look at her visually, people see that she's pregnant and looking like she's due any day now. So they might, you know, have empathy, sympathy for her in that way, but we don't really know. We know that they've been instructed to be fair and impartial. As to what type of witness she's coming off as, she's describing someone that she was, someone she said that was trying to figure out who she was at that time and who she was allowed to be. Now you're looking at somebody that's almost 40 years old, totally different person, but even in describing what was going on in her at that time, taking drugs, trying to please Sean Combs, she's really just sort of laying out the case for her not having a lot of control. So I think that's the takeaway. This is someone who is making it very clear that at that particular time in her life, she says she did not have any control really over what she wore, what she did, who she was having sex with. She's a different person now. But I think when she talks about those details and even reflecting on them for herself, as we saw today, she broke down.
It was the moment no one in that courtroom will ever forget. Diddy, the man who built an empire on always keeping his cool, completely lost it. The mask cracked and then shattered. You have to understand, this is someone who spent decades crafting a public image. The smooth-talking mogul. The unshakable businessman. The man who never let the world see him sweat. But as Cassie's testimony reached its most damning moments, that image began to unravel, fast. Court reporters who've covered hundreds of celebrity trials said they'd never seen anything like it. Diddy transformed right in front of them, from the confident industry titan who walked in that morning to a man who looked cornered, exposed, and desperate. And as the allegations kept coming, he seemed to physically shrink in his chair. Someone sitting behind his legal team said Diddy's lead attorney kept placing a hand on his arm, trying to calm him. At one point, a note was passed to him that read only 2 words, all in caps: "Stay calm." But it wasn't working. When Cassie described an incident at his Hamptons house, Diddy slammed his hand on the table so hard it echoed across the courtroom. The judge immediately intervened. "Mr. Combs, if you can't control yourself, I will have you removed from this courtroom." For a second, it looked like he might actually be thrown out of his own trial. Throughout Cassie's testimony, Diddy was seen shaking his head, mouthing "that's not true" over and over, seemingly unaware that a jury was watching his every reaction. One courtroom observer said, "It looked like a man who had never been challenged before, suddenly realizing he couldn't control the narrative anymore." Power shift was undeniable. For years, Diddy had allegedly controlled every part of Cassie's life. But now she had the mic. He couldn't cut it. He couldn't spin it. He couldn't make it go away. He just had to sit there and listen. Then came the turning point. Cassie testified that Diddy had threatened her family if she ever spoke about what happened. And then the bombshell. She had recordings. She'll audio of Diddy's voice making those threats. When her lawyer played the first clip, Diddy snapped. He stood up and shouted directly at Cassie, "You know that's not how it happened." His lawyers grabbed him, pulling him back into his seat. Took 3 of them to hold him down as he tried to shout over the recording. The judge called for an immediate recess. But the damage? Already done, the jury saw it, the press saw it, the entire courtroom saw the man once seen as untouchable unravel in real time. And just when everyone thought they'd heard it all, Cassie dropped the real bomb. She'd been quietly gathering evidence for years. Text messages, emails, photos, backed up in multiple places, far from Diddy's reach, and more than that, she had witnesses. Cassie revealed messages from other celebrities who had seen things firsthand. These weren't unknown industry folks, these were Diddy's own people. His friends, his collaborators, his inner circle. Courtroom went silent. A major rapper had texted her after a Grammy party. "You okay? What I saw tonight wasn't right. You can crash at my place." A pop star messaged. "I've known him 15 years and I've never seen him act like that. This isn't normal. Please call me." Most damning, a longtime producer who had worked with Diddy for decades. "I can't be around this anymore. I told him to get help. Call me when you're safe." Diddy's legal team panicked, objecting loudly, claiming hearsay, improper disclosure, anything to keep them out. The judge reviewed the messages and allowed them in. Then came Diddy's own texts. Screenshots showed him acknowledging incidents. "I'm sorry about last night. You know how I get when I drink. It won't happen again." Another message. "Whatever you need to make this right, new car, new apartment, whatever you want." One thread showed a financial offer. "My lawyer can draw up paperwork, $2 million. Clean break. You don't talk about anything from the past 5 years." As these messages were read, something striking happened. People who had arrived with Diddy, his entourage, began quietly slipping out of the courtroom, one by one, until almost no one was left behind him. By the end of the day, Diddy sat nearly alone at the defense table. Just him and his legal team. The support he walked in with? Gone. The image he built over decades? Crumbling. The courtroom had heard the evidence, seen the reactions, witnessed the unraveling. Cassie Ventura didn't just tell her story. She may have rewritten Diddy's legacy.